I'm the fossil shadow, I'm the fossil shadow of darkness, I'm the fossil shadow of this country darkness. I'm the fossil shadow of this country darkness. I'm the very fossil of this country darkness. I'm the very fossil of the shadows. 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 I'm the very fossil of the deep grave shadows, deep grave shadows. I'm the very fossil of the deep grave shadows. I'm the very fossil of the deep grave shadows. I'm the very fossil, I'm the very fossil, I'm the very fossil of the deep grave shadows of the night, of the misty, shadowy fossil night, of the shadow bones, of the shadow bones, of the fossils, of the shadow bones, of the fossil, of the shadow bones, of the fossil, the shadow bones, the shadow bones, the shadow bones, the fossil, the fossil, the fossil, the fossil, the fossil, the fossil, very fossil, very fossil. I'm the fossil shadow. I'm the fossil shadow tonight. I'm the fossil shadow, the very fossil shadow. I'm the fossil shadow. I'm the fossil shadow. I'm the fossil of the shadows of the graveyard tonight. The graveyard. I'm the fossil of the graveyard shadows. I'm the fossil of the graveyard shadows. I'm the fossil of the graveyard shadows.